Adolfo Caso is an author. He has written over 40 books, fiction and nonfiction. He also is an educator and an administrator with the Boston area school system. Mr. Caso is a retired Army colonel. He's the owner of 2 publishing companies, and he is the founder and the president of an online university. We have already met Mr. Caso. The first time, on the first instance, we had a discussion about his novel, The Straw Obelisk, and then on the second occasion, we spoke about the Columbus diary that he commented. Today we are talking about a bio or a memoir, and I'm glad to have him here today. And I hope I did say something about you. I know you're a very busy person. In fact, I read in the book that you have, it comes from higher authority that when you die, you'll be working half hour even after you die.
30 minutes.
30 minutes. So is this because you really like to work or because you're a workaholic?
I'm not a workaholic, but I like to work, and I've always worked in my life. For some reason, I don't know what it is, but I have it in me to have to do things. And I always like to do positive things, good things, not negative things.
We will talk about the positive
Yes.
things about the being a character.
Yeah.
One of the things that intrigues me is that you are a military man.
Yes.
In fact, you are a colonel.
Yes.
You even made a list for general?
Yes, I did. And the reason why I didn't get the general rank is because I had resigned from the military after 30 years, and the promotion came after I resigned.
How did it come about that you became involved with the military?
Well, I took ROTC in college.
I see.
And became commissioned as a second lieutenant. And because of my background from Italy, the Army sent me for 5 years of active duty to Italy, Vicenza, Italy, in CTAF.
You did not go to Vietnam because those are the years.
Vietnam came much later. But I was in a unit that was bound to go to Vietnam, but thankfully the war stopped, and so I never went there, and I'm very grateful that I didn't go. But I would have gone.
Imagine. And you served in Vicenza.
Vicenza.
Vicenza. There is a military station
yes,
there.
CTAF, right in Vicenza. It was really a wonderful time of my life because, and I'd just like to add, if I may, because they thought that I spoke Italian, I didn't really speak that good Italian.
You came here as a child.
Right. They practically assigned me a helicopter with a pilot, and my job was to do the reconnaissance of the range of the Dolomite Mountains.
That's a dangerous thing.
It was more than dangerous because I more or less decided what sites were good to put up radio relay sites. But on one of the mountain peaks, the highest outside of Grappa, something happened with the helicopter and with the pilot. He lost power. And we had a power unit underneath. And so he let the power unit go, and as he let go, the helicopter veered to the side of the mountain, and we slid down the side of the mountain until we finally landed in a cove that was full of snow. And there were 14 soldiers on board ship. These were my soldiers. And because of the snow, the helicopter didn't catch on fire. Everyone always died from those accidents, except for ours.
And what happened there? You continued on the mission, if I'm not...
Well, I'm glad you're asked, because I had a meeting with my soldiers, and we were supposed to replace the ones that were already there. And we decided that we were all right. And so we allowed the other soldiers to go back, and we stayed to complete our mission.
Now, you stayed in Vicenza 5 years?
5 years.
And then what happened?
And then I came back to Boston, and I joined the reserves.
I see.
And the rest of the time
So you never
was in the reserves.
saw action, war action?
No, only as a boy during the war.
Okay, we will be talking about that for
Yeah.
in a little while. You, in the book, you talk about war, on war itself. And you're saying there that if the nations were not looking down on other nations, that maybe there would be no wars.
I would doubt it.
It's strange that from a soldier comes a statement like that.
But I would doubt it, and the reason is this. My experience with human beings, you and me and everybody else, is that we are unique, and we always think that we are better than the others. There is this thing that io sono più forte di te. You know, that's our nature. And studying history, as far back as I can see, I never knew of any human being that did not go to battle with another.
But do you think that maybe one day we may have a world without war?
No.
There will always be war.
No, will always be war.
So you are accepting the idea that somebody is going to dominate you.
One way or another. One way or another.
Well, this is the first time I hear you as a pessimistic.
I know it's not being pessimistic; it's being realistic, based on what I have studied and what I see all over the world today. Problems.
As a child, your grandfather.
Yes.
Of course, we'll go more specific
Gabriele.
No, Crescenzo, I think.
Crescenzo is my other grandfather.
He's talking about the war, and you and the family were talking bad about soldiers that they were killing.
Yes.
And he said, you know, soldiers are like everywhere else. So they are trained to kill and to
Yes.
destroy.
Unfortunately, that is the truth.
So you basically accept that idea.
Yes, yes, yes.
Anyway, don't you think that to accept an idea that I'm stronger than you, so therefore you have to serve me? Basically, that's always been the mentality of nations,
Yes.
especially last century when
Yes.
they had colonies
Yeah.
and beyond. But today we call them bullies.
Of course.
That's the bully mentality.
Always.
Always. But you did fight against bullying
Well, because I'm short
as an individual.
and light, in my prime, I weighed 129 pounds. There were always people that try to either take advantage of me or abuse me. Luckily for me, I had it in me to fight back. In no uncertain terms, I never stood for any bully, and so I had several battles.
So in other words, you are saying, yes, there are bullies, but you have to fight them.
Yes, otherwise they'll be bullying you more.
Yeah. Can you tell us about that little incident about the boy who peed on you, on your shoes?
He was my second cousin.
Oh.
In dialect, we used to call him Cindrilisso. Can you imagine a name like that? And all of a sudden, by the way, we were always barefooted. We didn't have shoes, especially in the... And one day, we were just playing. All of a sudden, he pulls his pants down and pees on my feet.
And then he says, what are you going to do about it?
And then I said, can you imagine? I was so taken up by it, this man doing a thing like that. Furthermore, we were related. He was a Caso, the same as I. So I didn't say anything. I left the group and went to my house, got a stone, and waited for him to come by because I knew he had to go by because his house was on the other side. As he came within range, I took that stone and I threw it at him, and wouldn't you know it, hit right in his Achilles heel. And he started jumping up and down. To the marvel of all the other kids, never again any incident similar to that. And then the other kids said, Adolfo, because I was called Adolfo, says, wow, that was mighty good.
So you don't have to take, that's the lesson.
No.
So in other words, then you have war.
Yes, that's a good example.
Maybe because you're a military person.
No, because also of stupidity. Why did he do that? Who knows?
So war is unavoidable. So when you came out from, you said you went to the reserve.
Yes.
You stayed there 3 years. What was the last rank, grade?
Well, the last rank was a colonel, 06, and the biggest appointment that I had was I was a brigade commander in the reserves, not on active, but brigade commander was the highest position that I held.
I see. And I guess you're still involved in that, or not yet?
No, I
they don't call you
retired.
any- Once you retire, they forget you.
That's it. No, they don't forget, but you know, I served well, and I really got a lot back. I'm so grateful for having served the United States, which I think is the greatest nation in the world. But I was in love with America. I became in love with America because here I did what I wanted to do, and I was allowed to do it without any problem.
Maybe because you were an adult here now, you could do that.
Yes.
Let's go back now to talking about a little your academics.
Yes.
You came here as a child, but you went to school, right? You went to the elementary school?
Well, I went to the first grade in Italy, and there I learned how to read and write, and I learned the multiplication table. After the end of the first grade, going into the second grade, the war broke out, and all the schools were closed.
So that's
So
it.
there were no more schools.
So when you came to the U.S.?
And when I came to America in 1947, I hadn't gone to the other elementary schools, and I was placed in 6th grade, I still remember, at the Phillips School in Watertown, Massachusetts.
That's where your family...
And I didn't know English, but my teacher, Miss Templer, I remember her. She was so wonderful. She set me aside.
You remember your teachers.
Oh, she set me aside next to a shelf of books, and there were encyclopedias. So while she was giving a lecture to the class, I read all of those encyclopedias and fell in love with the pictures in the encyclopedia.
I see. Then you became an educator.
Yes, I did. I became an educator because I knew that I couldn't do anything else better than that, for some reason.
So, you know what, you finished college, and from then you became a teacher?
Yes.
I see.
So I took classes in the evening to become a teacher, and I did become a teacher, and I was hired as a teacher of Italian, French, and Spanish at the Waltham High School.
Now, you majored in those languages.
I did, at Northeastern University.
Yeah, and then you became an administrator?
Yes, I created actually a department, so I became the director of the bilingual department, and we taught kids from all over the world, ESL as well as bilingually. So I got quite a bit of exposure. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you changed the field altogether. You became a publisher?
Well, yes and no.
Yes and no.
I have to tell you because this is interesting. I wrote my first book called The Straw Obelisk, okay? And
which we can review that on
yes.
on YouTube, our conversation.
Yes, all over. And this company, Brandon, at that time it was Brandon Press, had the editor, his name was Edmund Brown, but his wife was Alice Berry Brown, and she was a distinguished woman. She and I became, because she read my manuscript and suggested that I be published by Brandon, we became friends on the side. And she was a poet as well. And I was writing poetry. And we started to exchange poems between one another. And we became what I consider platonic lovers.
Platonic?
Yes.
Okay.
So then I was published by Brandon, and they gave me the option. Either I could receive in form of royalties, dollars, money, or I could receive, instead of dollars or money, stock in the company.
Wow.
I opted for stock. I didn't need the money.
Obviously, they...
And then I published other books. Before I knew it, I was a major stockholder in the company. Mr. and Mrs. Brown died. There was a meeting of the stockholders, and so there was no one to take over. So I bought out the shares of the other ones and became the publisher.
Wow, that's quite a story.
It's different.
Yeah, it is different.
By the way, the company was started by Mr. Brown in 1919. So from 1919 to 2017 today, there have been only 2 publishers, Mr. Brown and myself.
Wow.
And I'm still going strong.
And you're still going strong. But soon we're going to have to celebrate 100 years.
Yes, please.
Maybe we'll celebrate publishing some books.
Oh, I doubt it, but it would be nice.
In your company, what kind of books do you publish?
Only what I like. If
Oh,
I don't
wow.
like them, forget it. And it doesn't matter what it is, but I do mainly nonfiction and fiction, some poetry, very few children's books, but I do not do humor, I do not do science fiction, I do not do horror, I do not do sex, I don't do any of those things.
I
But
see.
they have to be of some
Serious
quality.
books.
Books that have some impact on our society.
Wow, so you assign some morality to
Yes.
it, which I think it's...
Yeah.
Suppose there is somebody who is viewing now our program and has a book. Can they contact you?
Oh, certainly. I require very small things, 1 or 2 paragraphs about the book and nothing else. And then I read it. They have to send it to me, either by mail or internet. And if I like the subject matter, then I will say, please send the manuscript. And the manuscript has to be in Word doc format. And all they do is, if I ask for it, they can send it to me. And then I would say, many thanks we cannot use. Very often that's what I have to do.
Yeah, of course.
Or please send me the entire manuscript.
That's the lucky time. That's
Yeah.
the happy time.
And then I read it, I format it and read it. I do all of it myself, by the way.
I see.
And if I like it,
You publish.
we offer a contract, an agreement.
And the name is Brandon?
Brandon Books, Branden Books, Brandon Books. And it's on the internet, it's all over the place, Amazon. Or
You're a family man, obviously. You have, how many children you have?
well, I like to brag about my grandchildren. I don't have any great-grandchildren yet. I'm hoping to.
So you
But
brag about
Margaret and I have 17 grandchildren. Can you imagine that?
17.
And we enjoy all of them.
I only have 6, so there's
I
a
got
long
you
way to
beat.
go.
But you're younger than I am.
Okay, yeah. But you have always lived in the Boston area?
When we came to America in 1947, we moved to Watertown, Massachusetts, and I went to all the schools in Watertown. Thereafter, I went in the Army, and I lived in Augusta, Georgia.
Oh, you did?
Of all places, yes.
Augusta.
And then when I retired from the Army, we moved to Newton, Massachusetts. And then from Newton, Massachusetts, we moved to Weston, Massachusetts. And there I've been living for all this time.
So basically, you're
A Bostonian.
yeah, Bostonian. About the writing, you obviously, you've written 40 books. How did it come about? How did it come about that you decided all of a sudden you're going to write?
Well, it was because of Professor Holmes at Northeastern University. I was a junior, and I was taking his course on writing. My English was faulty.
Creative writing.
Yes. And I remember he consulted us and he told us this is, and I remember he looked at me and called me Al at that time. They used to call me Al. And he said, you have a background, you lived in Italy, whatever. If you were to write a book about that background, I'm sure you would write a good book. And if the grammar were to be bad, it can always be corrected. But if you write about things that you don't know, most likely you will write a